Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Massive win for USC at home against Wisconsin Saturday afternoon. But I want to dive into what I think is a massive storyline for USC going forward, specifically on the defensive side of the football, and that is second half adjustments. Now, you talk about what value a defensive coordinator, an elite defensive coordinator, I should say, brings to a team, brings to a defense. Yeah, I think it starts with player development. I think it starts with the install of scheme and personnel groupings in the offseason. But something you don't really know until you see it on game day is a coordinator's ability to adapt and adjust in the middle of the football game. And I think Coach Dan Lynn in back to back weeks against Michigan and now Wisconsin has showed that he's one of the best in the business at making those adjustments. Wisconsin was able to have some success with certain concepts, specifically on first and second down in the first half of that football game. And then you go to the second half, all of a sudden, Wisconsin really couldn't get anything going. And you look at the drive chart for this Wisconsin offense in the second half: 3 plays, -7 yards punt; 9 plays, 47 yards, turnover on downs; 3 plays, 3 yards punt; 4 plays, 16 yards punt; 2 plays, 2 yards, pick six; 4 plays, 6 yards, turnover on downs, end of the football game. That doesn't get much better. And I think you got to give a ton of credit for Coach Dan Lynn, getting this defense right in the locker room, saying, hey, this is what we're looking at. This is what we're going to go to in the second half. And this is how we're going to dominate on the defensive side of the football. Now I want to dive into what were some of the second half adjustments you saw USC make in the second half and what led them to have so much success on the defensive side of the football. Now, before we get into it, as always, to the USC fans, we're 48 hours after this game. We hopped on Saturday afternoon, just kind of gave a live reaction upon the rewatch that I'm sure all of you guys have done. Would love to hear some of your biggest takeaways from this football game. Again, I can't thank you guys enough for all the support. It's no secret. I love talking this program. Appreciate y'all rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into this one now. Before we get into some of the film and dive into some of the schematics that we saw for USC, I want to start with just some overall takeaways from that second half of football, but largely like what you've seen from this USC defense through the first 4 games of the season. One, they are tackling in space at such a higher level than they did in 2023. Take a look at the Wisconsin game. They only had 70 yards after the catch that whole football game. That's on over 180 yards total throwing, and more than 40 of those yards. So more than half of those yards after the catch came on that first throw of the football game that went for a touchdown on that first drive. After that, they had less than 30 yards after the catch all game. And that's a huge storyline because you look at the landscape of college football, that is college football in a nutshell. And we're going to get our playmakers in space and let them operate after the catch. If you have a defense that's closing in on the football and making plays in space, bringing ball carriers to the ground, that is a recipe to play really good defense. You only missed 4 tackles in that football game. Again, what were the biggest problems that we had with USC last year? One, poor assignment football, blown coverages. You haven't seen many of that. And then number two, like getting ball carriers to the ground. It's simple, but it was a problem for USC last year. That's why they were one of the worst defenses in the country. The fundamentals, the small, or I shouldn't say small parts, but the simple parts of the football game, like this USC defense is operating at a very high level with. I think another storyline here is you're playing some complementary football. Like as many points as USC was able to put up last year, it came on a lot of explosive plays. You look at some of the drive charts for USC's offense. I mean, there was a drive chart in the second half that goes 9 plays, touchdown, 9 plays, touchdown, 10 plays, touchdown for USC on offense. Not only are you putting 21 points up on the board in 3 consecutive drives, but I think more importantly, you're keeping your USC defense off the field. You're keeping that Wisconsin offense off the field. I mean, last year, USC found themselves in so many shootout games where the defense was on the field for so long. It was hard to make those adjustments. Not that Alex Grinch was going to make them, period, but if he were to make them, it would have been hard for him to make them because you're on the football field so much. USC on offense, they're still putting up points. They're still top 20 in the country in terms of points per game, but they are also doing it efficiently. They're doing it in a complementary way to allow this USC defense to be put in good positions. That's another storyline. Special teams was much, much better in the second half than it was in the first half. you're starting to see this USC team play three phases of football, three phases of solid football, where last year it was just one phase, the offense, the Caleb Williams show, kind of putting it together. And it's hard to beat good teams when you're really just relying on your offense to win football games. Now, getting into some of the adjustments that USC made, I think it starts on first and second down. And you saw this USC team, although maybe a little bit at times undersized on the defensive line. This defensive line does the dirty work and plays the right way. Jamil Muhammad was phenomenal in this football game. And why is winning on first and second down so important for USC? When you get Coach Dan Lynn into those third and long situations, that's when Dan Lynn starts to cook. And we're going to start looking at some of those third down plays. But first, you got to get into those third and long spots, right? When you are consistently in third and ones and third and twos, it's really hard for Coach Lynn to get creative with his play calling when the whole playbook's open for Wisconsin's offense. When you close that playbook down, when you stick them in third and 8+, you can start getting creative on defense, giving a lot of different looks. Let's start with how you get to first and second down. I think it starts with being really good against the run and playing disciplined football. Wisconsin's going to go to a little bit of a pin and pull concept where they're going to try to crack down on Jamil Muhammad and get the ball carrier to the perimeter. This is winning football for Jamil Muhammad, where he's going to keep that outside shoulder free. He is going to make sure he's keeping good leverage. Ball carrier is not able to get to the perimeter. You're forcing him back into all this help. Rest of the USC defense rallies. Jamil Muhammad doesn't stop playing, ends up making this tackle behind the line of scrimmage. 2nd and 8 now turns into a 2nd and 12. Now Dan Lynn can get really creative in terms of what he wants to do on defense on third downs. Second thing I want to talk about is what Dan Lynn's doing on third downs. It is putting these young quarterbacks in such uncomfortable positions. There is a million different packages that Dan Lynn throws at opposing offenses. These are some of my favorite ones. When he mugs the line of scrimmage, puts pretty much, you're showing cover zero, right? You're showing man-to-man coverage on the outside. You're showing you're going to send 7 guys and just have your 4 guys dropping back in man coverage. I love this for 2 reasons. One, you're going to take 2 defensive linemen and drop them out into those hook zones, but you're still going to play man coverage across the board. Wisconsin has a good play call dialed up for man coverage, right? You're going to send this wide receiver in motion and you're going to try to get the wide receiver in space, but look at the communication in the back end here between Kamari Ramsey and Bryson Shaw. Kamari Ramsey immediately telling Bryson Shaw, I'm going to pick up the motioned wide receiver. You're going to take the slot wide receiver. And because of that, Wisconsin thinks they have a free play here. Like, hey, we got numbers on this side. We're going to get out here, throw this little bubble and go make a play. Not with Kamari Ramsey, kind of, I guess what you'd say is passing it off. Bryson Shaw all of a sudden takes this wide receiver, Kamari Ramsey, going to fire downhill, close distance between himself and the ball carrier, and go make a play. I mean, like, one, you go back and say, look at the communication that you're seeing in the back end. You didn't see this type of stuff for Alex Grinch in this USC defense. What you'd see last year is Bryson Shaw's all the way in man coverage. Now he has to go figure out a way to go get to this ball carrier. You're going to pass it off with Kamari Ramsey and Bryson Shaw, confuse the Wisconsin defense, go and make a play on the football. To me, it doesn't get any better. And then I think on the next third down, you're going to look at USC is going to show a little bit of a different look. 5-man front. You get this left tackle in a lot of conflict here. Right, this left tackle, we've seen Mason Cobb blitz off the edge plenty in this football game, whether it's Mason Cobb, whether it's Eric Gentry. This left tackle thinks he has to pick up Mason Cobb and pass pro. He's late getting to Anthony Lucas. Anthony Lucas gets a free run on the quarterback, blowing up this play. Again, it's textbook stuff. It's confusing opposing defenses, or offenses, I should say. Dan Lynn and what he's doing in the second half, I think, is incredible stuff. That's the real value of having a defensive coordinator. It's not only player development. It's not only preparation in the offseason and midweek stuff, but it's also in the game, identifying what is Wisconsin having success with. In this case, it was on first and second down. We got to figure out a way to win on first and second down. Then we can start getting aggressive as a defense and start putting the offense in conflict. That's what Dan Lynn's doing. I think it's just awesome to see USC playing good defense. It is night and day. You had a lot of national media analysts getting up there in the offseason saying you can't turn around a defense in one offseason. We kind of consistently said, we just saw Dan Lynn do it at UCLA in 2023. Why can't he do it at USC in 2024? That's what he's doing. 17 points per game allowed, top 20 in the country. Doesn't get much better. We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. Again, if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk to y'all later.